Just a couple of things I forgot to mention during the announcements. The Lord's Supper is going to be offered as soon as we dismiss down in the kitchen. So if you didn't have an opportunity to take the Lord's Supper this morning, it's prepared for you in the kitchen, so we've asked that you go there for that. The second thing is just keep in mind what this Power Night is all about. It's not about getting all the jobs done and all the things done that we have as a goal. Rather, you need to spend time, and I would ask that you spend time just briefly talking about the service, the work that we're at, why we're doing it, the importance of it, the communion that we have as family here together and what we're about. So again, just spend a few minutes, group leaders, maybe talking a little bit about that. And the final thing, at 6:43, you'll hear a bell. That's the 2-minute warning bell. And at 6:45, you'll hear the final bell, which means that you need to go ahead and wrap up your things and come to the fellowship hall. And we'll have our wrap up there in the fellowship hall, 6:45 for the final bell. Dad had mentioned this morning about Africa, and I remember, this is kind of gross. We had worms that would get, and I don't know if you ran barefoot in the dirt, I don't know how, but I guess they were microscopic at first, and if you had a cut or your toe was stubbed or something like that, this parasite would find a way to get into your body, and it would grow. And I can vividly remember as a little kid getting worms in my feet. And you could see the outline of these little worms. And it would itch and you could feel them move. Really disgusting. There was a medicine that we took to kill those parasites. I don't remember what that medicine was, but I do remember that the smell of it made me violently sick. Mom and Dad would try to get that stuff down my throat, and I would just blow chunks. I mean, do you remember that, Dad? I think I got some on you from time. So from that point forward, the smell of this medicine was enough to make me nauseous to the point that I had a physical reaction to it. Isn't that funny how smells can trigger? To this day, if I smell anything, it's got a kind of a citrusy mix to it, and it's a kind of a sweet. Just thinking about it, I'm getting a little bit queasy. I should move on to something else. The opposite of that is true also. I remember the smells of Thanksgiving or Christmas morning. Just such a special emotion that kind of washes over. Have you ever walked into a place and you've smelled something and just memories begin to flood into you? And some of those are just wonderful memories that I would not trade for anything. And smells will trigger those memories. And I can actually have a emotional transformation based on something that I'm smelling. Are y'all with me on this, or is it just me? Okay, I need some confirmation here. Okay. There's a story, one of my favorite stories, that is recounted by John, in the book of John, in chapter 18. It's not the story, but we need some context here very briefly. In chapter 18, verse 18, this is the events leading up to the crucifixion of Jesus and the night that he's arrested. And what we have here is a story taking place that leads to Peter's denial of Jesus 3 different times. So in verse 18, he said, "I am not." That's answering a question about whether or not he was one of Jesus' disciples. That's the first time right there that he denied Jesus. And verse 18 continues, "Now the servants and officers had made a charcoal fire." Not just a fire, a charcoal fire. You're only going to hear or you're only going to read about a charcoal fire one other time in the entire New Testament. And it just happens to be a few chapters over. But I want you to stop right there and pause, and maybe even circle that in your Bible, because it is, I think, something worth noting. Have you ever been camping, and I know most men have, and the smell of a charcoal fire, it's unique. There's really nothing like it. And for most people, the smell of a charcoal fire is a fond memory. It brings back lots of good thoughts. If you read the rest of this chapter in 18, you're going to see that Peter continues to stay by that fire intermittently because he needs to warm up. And it's at the site of that charcoal fire where you have that exchange. And I see that Jesus, in my mind, probably looks at him at that third denial, because they are close in proximity to each other. And the rooster crows. And so take in the scene that is happening, and the sights and the smells, and Peter especially being there warming himself up by a charcoal fire. Now flip over to chapter 21. And this is one of my favorite scenes where Peter decides to go out fishing, and they've been out all night, and they've been distraught, and Christ has appeared to them twice already, but they don't know where he is or if he's coming back or when he's coming back. And then they see this man on the shore, and Peter, being like Peter is, he jumps in with his clothes on and he swims over to the shore. And in verse 9, we have the other time that we see this in the New Testament. When they got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place with fish laid out on it and bread. And as you know, you read the rest of the story, Jesus has fixed them breakfast over a charcoal fire. I don't think it's a coincidence that you have the last time that Jesus denied Christ and the smell of charcoal fire. And really, I believe that that would be something that would ruin a smell for a person, especially Peter. I believe that the smell of a charcoal fire from that point forward would have been a horrible, awful memory, because it was when he denied his Lord. Jesus could have fixed any kind of fire, but he chose to fix a charcoal fire. Especially when you read this in light of the exchange that happens, where Peter and Jesus walk down the shoreline, and Jesus repeatedly asked Peter, "Do you love me?" Part of Jesus' plan here is to redeem Peter. He must have been full of tremendous guilt for what he had done. And they have this beautiful exchange in which Peter realizes that his life is about to change. Jesus removes the odor of sin in our lives. It is an odor, it stinks. That's one of the great things that we can hold on to as Christians. Is that no matter how badly you stink, no matter how badly the sin is in your life, Christ is here to replace that bad memory with something pleasant, like Christmas morning breakfast. And in this case, breakfast on the seashore made over a charcoal fire. So, how are the odors in your life? Strange question to ask, perhaps. But I think it's worth considering and worth noting that Christ, our Redeemer, has the power to change all of that for us. The question is whether or not we're willing to let go of the stench and embrace the sweet smell, the sweet aroma of our salvation. If we can offer anything for you all tonight, if there's anybody here that needs to respond to the invitation, come down front as we stand and sing.